The black Mercedes pulled up to the glass tower on West Madison Street, just as the sun was setting over Chicago. David Chen stepped out, adjusting his expensive watch and straightening his suit jacket. He'd bought the penthouse in this building 3 months ago, but today was his first time actually staying here. His previous assistant had handled all the moving arrangements while he was closing deals in New York. David was 38 years old and had built his software company from nothing. 10 years ago, he was coding in his tiny apartment living off instant noodles. Now his company was worth $2 billion, and he owned properties in 5 different cities. But success hadn't changed who he was inside. At least that's what he told himself. As he walked toward the entrance, pulling his suitcase behind him, a young girl suddenly appeared beside him. She couldn't have been more than 11 or 12 years old, with her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and wearing a school uniform that had seen better days. Her brown eyes were wide and nervous. "Excuse me, sir," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. David stopped and looked down at her. "Yes?" The girl glanced around quickly as if checking to see if anyone was watching. Then she pressed a folded piece of paper into his hand. Her fingers were trembling. "Please read this when you're alone," she whispered urgently. "It's really important, please." Before David could respond, a woman's voice called out from near the service entrance. Tasha, where are you?" "I told you to stay in the break room." The girl's eyes went even wider. "That's my mom. I have to go. Just please read it." Then she turned and ran toward the woman who was now walking quickly in their direction. David watched as the woman, who appeared to be wearing a custodian's uniform, grabbed the girl's hand. She was scolding her in Spanish, and even though David didn't speak the language fluently, he could tell the mother was upset that her daughter had approached him. The woman looked at David with an apologetic expression and quickly pulled the girl back toward the service entrance. David stood there for a moment, holding the folded paper. The building's doorman approached him with a professional smile. "Good evening, Mr. Chen. Welcome home. Can I help you with your luggage?" "No, I've got it," David said absently, still watching the service entrance where the girl and her mother had disappeared. "Who was that?" "The woman and the girl? Oh, that's Rosa. She's one of our custodial staff. Works the evening shift. The girl is her daughter. I apologize if she bothered you, sir. Rosa usually keeps her in the staff quarters, but sometimes the girl wanders." David nodded slowly. "It's fine. She didn't bother me." He walked into the building, rode the elevator up to the 42nd floor, and entered his penthouse. The space was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. His furniture had been arranged perfectly. His art hung on the walls, everything exactly where he'd wanted it. But he barely noticed any of it. He was still thinking about the fear in that little girl's eyes. He tossed his suitcase aside and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was careful and neat, the kind that comes from a child who's trying very hard to write clearly. "Don't trust Vanessa Clark. She's not who she says she is. Please be careful." David read it 3 times, then let out a long breath and sat down on his leather couch. Vanessa Clark, his new executive assistant, the woman who'd become absolutely essential to him in just 3 weeks. He'd hired Vanessa after his previous assistant retired. She'd come with incredible references, had interviewed brilliantly, and had proven herself immediately. She was 32, sharp as a knife, and seemed to understand what he needed before he even asked for it. She'd reorganized his entire schedule, streamlined his meetings, and had even caught a major error in a contract that would have cost him millions. David looked at the note again. A little girl he'd never met was telling him not to trust the person who'd become one of his most valued employees. It seemed ridiculous. He crumpled the paper and tossed it toward the trash can. It bounced off the rim and landed on the floor. David left it there and went to pour himself a drink. His phone buzzed. It was Vanessa. "I confirmed your dinner reservation with the investors from Tokyo," her text said. "Car will pick you up at 7:30. I've briefed the restaurant about your dietary restrictions. The presentation files are loaded on your tablet. You're going to do great," David smiled. See, she was perfect. Why would he listen to a random note from a child? The dinner went exactly as Vanessa had planned. The Japanese investors were impressed with David's presentation. By the end of the night, they'd agreed to a $50 million deal. David was on top of the world as he rode back to his building. But when he walked into his penthouse and saw that crumpled note still lying on the floor, something made him pick it up. He smoothed it out and read it again. "Don't trust Vanessa Clark. Why would that girl warn him? She was just a kid. She didn't know anything about his business world. Her mother was a custodian. They probably lived in the building's staff housing, which he'd heard was pretty basic. Maybe the girl was just making up stories. Kids did that sometimes, but then he remembered her eyes. That wasn't the look of a child playing games. That was genuine fear. David sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. He pulled up Vanessa's employment file. Everything looked perfect on paper. Harvard Business School, 5 years at a top consulting firm. Glowing recommendation letters. He'd checked all of this before hiring her, of course. His HR department had been thorough. He decided he was being paranoid. Success had made him suspicious of everyone, and that wasn't healthy. Vanessa had done nothing but help him. That little girl, sweet as she seemed, was wrong. Over the next few days, David threw himself into work. Vanessa continued to be amazing at her job. She handled a crisis with a major client, organized a last-minute business trip, and even remembered to send flowers to his mother for her birthday, something David had completely forgotten. But he kept seeing that girl around the building. She'd be in the lobby doing homework while her mother worked. She'd be helping her mother empty trash bins on different floors, and every time she saw David, she'd look at him with those same worried eyes as if silently asking, "Did you read my note? Did you listen?" He tried to ignore it. He told himself he was being ridiculous for even thinking about it. But late at night, when he couldn't sleep, he'd find himself wondering, what if the girl was right? What if she'd seen or heard something he hadn't? One evening, about a week after receiving the note, David was working late in his penthouse when he heard a soft knock on his door. It was past 11. He wasn't expecting anyone. He opened the door to find the girl standing there, this time with her mother beside her. The mother looked terrified and was gripping her daughter's hand tightly. "Mr. Chen," the woman said in heavily accented English, "I am so sorry to bother you." "My daughter," she insists. "She says there is something you must know." "Something important. Please, I apologize, but she will not sleep until she tells you." David looked down at the girl. Tasha. Her name was Tasha. "It's about Miss Clark," the girl said, her voice stronger now. "I know you didn't believe my note, but I saw something today. Something bad, and I think you're in trouble." David felt a chill run down his spine. The way she said it with such certainty made him realize that maybe he should have paid attention sooner. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "Tell me everything." David gestured for Rosa and Tasha to sit on his couch while he pulled up a chair across from them. Rosa looked uncomfortable in the expensive penthouse, perched on the edge of the cushion like she might break something just by being there. Tasha, on the other hand, sat up straight with determination in her eyes. "Okay," David said gently. "Tell me what you saw." Tasha looked at her mother, who nodded. The girl took a deep breath. "I saw Miss Clark taking pictures of your mail," she said, with her phone. She didn't know I was watching. David frowned. "My mail? When was this?" "This afternoon. Around 4 o'clock. Mom and I were cleaning the mailroom on your floor. We were in the supply closet getting more trash bags when Miss Clark came in. She went straight to your mailbox and pulled out a big envelope. Then she took pictures of it with her phone front and back. Then she put it back and left really fast." "Tasha," David said carefully, "maybe she was just checking my mail for me. She's my assistant. That's part of her job sometimes." "But she looked scared," Tasha insisted. "She kept looking around like she was doing something wrong. And when she left, I went to see what the envelope was. It was from a bank. A bank in the Cayman Islands." David felt his stomach tighten. He did have accounts in the Cayman Islands, perfectly legal ones for international business. But Vanessa shouldn't have been anywhere near information about those accounts. His personal banking was completely separate from his business operations, and he'd never given her access to anything related to his private finances. "Are you sure it was her?" David asked. "I'm sure," Tasha said. "I've seen her lots of times. She has that red hair and always wears those high heels that make clicking sounds. It was definitely her." Rosa spoke up then, her voice nervous. "Mr. Chen, I tell Tasha maybe is nothing. Maybe Miss Clark just helping you. But Tasha say no, something is wrong. She very upset about this for many days now." David looked at the young girl. "Why? Why are you so worried about this?" Tasha bit her lip. "Can I show you something?" David nodded. Tasha pulled out her phone, which was old and had a cracked screen. She opened a web browser and showed him a news article. "Last month, our teacher made us do a project about crime in business. We had to research different kinds of crimes that happen in offices and companies. I found this article about a woman who stole money from rich people by pretending to work for them. David took the phone and read the article. It was from about 8 months ago, detailing how a woman named Victoria Hayes had been caught running an elaborate scheme. She would get hired as an assistant or consultant for wealthy executives, gain their trust, and then systematically steal their financial information to drain their accounts. She'd successfully robbed 4 people before getting caught. But she'd escaped from custody during a court appearance and was still at large. The article included a photo. David's blood went cold. The woman in the picture had dark hair instead of red, and she wore glasses instead of contacts, but the face was unmistakable. It was Vanessa. "Oh my God," David whispered. "I wasn't totally sure at first," Tasha said. "The picture is a little different, but the more I saw Miss Clark around the building, the more certain I became. The way she smiles, the way she walks, even her voice. I watched videos of Victoria Hayes talking in court. It's the same person." "I know it is." David's mind was racing. He looked at the date on the article again. 8 months ago. He'd hired Vanessa 3 weeks ago. Her references had all checked out. Her background check had come back clean. How was that possible?
"Why didn't you tell the police?"
David asked. Rosa answered this time. "We try, Mr. Chen. We called the police station 2 weeks ago. But they say they need proof. They say a little girl thinking someone looks like a picture is not enough. They say if we make false report, we could get in trouble. We even went to the station in person," Tasha added. "The officer was nice, but he said there are lots of women with red hair, and that I was probably mistaken. He said Victoria Hayes was probably out of the country by now." David stood up and started pacing. His mind was running through everything Vanessa had done for him over the past 3 weeks. She'd reorganized his files. She'd updated his calendar system. She'd set up new software on his computer to help him manage his schedule better. She'd even convinced him to use a new password manager that would make everything more secure, or so she'd said. What if all of that was just a way to access his information? What if the password manager was actually giving her access to everything? What if she'd been slowly and carefully gathering every piece of data she needed to rob him blind? "Mr. Chen," Rosa said softly. "You okay?" David realized he'd stopped pacing and was just standing there staring at nothing. "I need to check something," he said. "Can you both wait here for a few minutes?" He went to his home office and opened his laptop. He started digging through his recent financial statements, his email history, his security logs. The more he looked, the more concerned he became. There were small things, tiny irregularities that he'd ignored or hadn't noticed, an email from his bank that he didn't remember reading, a login to his investment account from an IP address he didn't recognize, a request to update his security questions that he'd thought came from his bank, but now seemed suspicious. He'd dismissed all of these as normal glitches or routine updates, but what if they weren't? David went back to the living room. Rosa and Tasha were sitting quietly, waiting. The girl looked anxious but hopeful. "I need to ask you something," David said to Tasha. "And I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there any chance you could be wrong about this? Any chance at all?" Tasha shook her head firmly. "I'm not wrong, Mr. Chen, I promise. I've been watching Miss Clark for 2 weeks. I've compared her to every picture and video I could find of Victoria Hayes. It's her. She changed her hair and her style, but it's the same person. I'm sure." David believed her. He didn't know why exactly. Maybe it was the certainty in her voice. Maybe it was the fact that she'd risked getting in trouble by warning him. Maybe it was because when he really thought about it, Vanessa had been almost too perfect, too eager to help, too quick to gain access to every part of his life. "Okay," he said. "I believe you." Relief washed over Tasha's face. Rosa looked like she might cry. "But we need to be smart about this," David continued. "If Vanessa really is this Victoria Hayes person, then she's dangerous and she's been planning something big. We can't just confront her. We need evidence. We need proof. What do we do?" Tasha asked. David thought for a moment. "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to call a private investigator, someone who specializes in this kind of fraud. I'm going to have them look into Vanessa's background more carefully. And I'm going to start documenting everything strange that happens." "What about tonight?" Rosa asked. "Is safe?" "I'll be fine tonight," David said, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. "She doesn't know that we're onto her. That's our advantage. As long as she thinks everything is normal, she won't make any sudden moves." He looked at Tasha. You did the right thing by telling me. You might have just saved me from losing everything." The girl smiled for the first time since entering his penthouse. "My teacher always says we should speak up when we see something wrong. Even if we're scared. Even if we think no one will believe us." "Your teacher is absolutely right," David said. "And you're a very brave girl." After Rosa and Tasha left, David couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about how close he'd come to ignoring that crumpled note. How close he'd come to dismissing a little girl's warning just because she didn't fit into his world of business suits and corporate deals. He'd built an empire by trusting his instincts about people, but somehow Vanessa had slipped past all his defenses. Maybe because she'd told him exactly what he wanted to hear, maybe because she'd made herself indispensable so quickly, or maybe because he'd become so used to success that he'd stopped being cautious. Whatever the reason, he'd almost made a terrible mistake. And a 12-year-old girl with a cracked phone and a school project had seen what he'd missed. The question now was what to do about it. And David knew that whatever came next, he had to be very, very careful. The next morning, David woke up early and did something he never did. He made his own coffee instead of stopping by the cafe where Vanessa usually met him with his usual order. He needed to think clearly, and he couldn't risk her noticing any change in his behavior. At 8 o'clock sharp, his phone rang. It was Vanessa. "Good morning," she said cheerfully. "I'm downstairs with your coffee. Should I come up?" David's heart raced, but he kept his voice steady. "Actually, I'm running late this morning. I'll meet you at the office in an hour." There was a brief pause. "Is everything okay? You sound different. Just tired. Didn't sleep well. See you soon." He hung up before she could ask any more questions. His hands were shaking. He'd never been good at lying, and now he had to pretend everything was normal while he figured out what to do. David called his head of security, a former FBI agent named Raymond, who handled all the serious matters for his company. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop far from David's office, somewhere Vanessa wouldn't think to look for him. Raymond listened carefully as David explained everything. He didn't interrupt, just took notes on his tablet. When David finished, Raymond sat back and rubbed his jaw. "This is serious," Raymond said. "If this woman really is Victoria Hayes, we're not dealing with some amateur. She's smart, calculated, and she's gotten away with this multiple times." "What should I do?" David asked. "First, don't confront her. Don't let her know you suspect anything. We need to gather evidence." Raymond pulled up something on his tablet. "I'm going to run a deeper background check, the kind that goes beyond what HR typically does. I'm also going to check the security footage from your building. If this girl saw Vanessa photographing your mail, there should be video proof. How long will that take? Give me 48 hours. In the meantime, act completely normal. Don't change your routine. Don't access any sensitive files from your computer at work because if she's installed monitoring software, she'll know. Use your phone for anything important and only on cellular data, not Wi-Fi." David nodded, feeling sick to his stomach. "I trusted her with everything, Raymond. She has access to my calendar, my emails, my contacts. What if she's already gotten what she needs? Then we stop her before she can use it," Raymond said firmly. "But panicking won't help. We need to be strategic." The next 2 days were the longest of David's life. He went to work and acted like everything was fine. Vanessa was her usual efficient self, bringing him coffee, managing his calls, reminding him about meetings. Every time she smiled at him, he wondered what she was really thinking. Was she planning her next move? Was she laughing at how easy he'd been to fool? Tasha's words kept echoing in his mind. She looked scared, like she was doing something wrong. On the second evening, Raymond called. "We need to meet now, I found something." They met at the same coffee shop. Raymond looked grim as he opened his laptop. "You were right to be suspicious," he said. "I pulled the security footage from your building's mailroom. Look at this." He showed David a video timestamp from 2 days ago. There was Vanessa doing exactly what Tasha had described. She opened David's mailbox, pulled out the envelope from the Cayman Islands bank, and photographed it from every angle. Her body language was tense, nervous. She kept glancing at the door. "There's more," Raymond said. He pulled up another screen. "Vanessa Clark doesn't exist. Well, she exists on paper, but that paper is fake. The references you called? Those phone numbers all route to burner phones. The Harvard degree forged. Even her social security number belongs to someone else, a woman who died 3 years ago." David felt dizzy. "So she really is Victoria Hayes." "I'm 99% certain. I sent her photo to a contact I have at the FBI. They're running facial recognition now, but based on everything else, yeah. She's Hayes. What's her endgame? David asked. What's she after? Raymond pulled up more files. Victoria Hayes's previous victims all had one thing in common. She didn't just steal their money. She stole their entire financial identity. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, cryptocurrency wallets, everything. And she did it right before they were about to make major financial moves. David's stomach dropped. My Singapore trip. What Singapore trip? I'm supposed to fly to Singapore next week for a major acquisition deal. We're buying a tech company for $300 million. The funds are already in escrow, waiting for me to authorize the final transfer. Raymond's face went pale. When did you plan this trip? Vanessa helped me plan it. She suggested moving it up by a week because the sellers were getting anxious. David ran his hands through his hair. Oh God, she's been setting me up this whole time. We need to call the FBI now. Wait, David said. If we bring in the FBI now, she'll run. She's done it before. They had her in custody and she escaped. What if she gets away again? Raymond considered this. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we catch her in the act. We let her think everything is going according to plan. I go on the trip, or at least she thinks I do. And when she tries to access my accounts, we grab her. That's risky, David, really risky. So is letting her disappear and try this again with someone else. After a long moment, Raymond nodded. Okay, but we do this my way. We bring in the FBI, but we don't arrest her yet. We set a trap. Over the next few days, David worked with Raymond and 2 FBI agents to plan everything carefully. They installed monitoring software on David's work computer that would track everything Vanessa did. They set up fake account information that Vanessa could find, accounts that looked real but would alert them the moment anyone tried to access them. David had to keep acting normal, which was torture. Vanessa brought him lunch and chatted about her weekend plans. She laughed at his jokes and remembered his mother's birthday again. If he hadn't known the truth, he would have thought she genuinely cared about him. One evening, as David was leaving the office, he saw Tasha and Rosa in the lobby. Rosa was mopping the floor while Tasha did homework at a bench. The girl looked up and caught David's eye. He gave her a small nod and she smiled. That smile reminded him why he was doing this, not just to protect himself, but to protect everyone else Vanessa might hurt in the future, and to prove that Tasha had been right to speak up, that her voice mattered even though she was young and didn't come from money. The day before his supposed trip to Singapore, Vanessa was more attentive than ever. She triple-checked his packing list, confirmed his car service, and made sure he had all his travel documents. You're going to do great, she said warmly. This acquisition is going to change everything for your company. I couldn't have done it without you, David said, and he meant it in a way she wouldn't understand. Without her crimes, he might never have realized how vulnerable he'd become. That night, David didn't actually leave for the airport. Instead, he went to a hotel room across the street from his office building. Raymond and the FBI agents were there with monitors showing every camera angle of David's office. She should make her move tonight, one of the agents said. Once she thinks you're on that plane, she'll know she has at least 12 hours before you could possibly discover what she's done. They waited. 9 o'clock passed, then 10. At 11:15, the office building's security cameras showed someone entering through a side door. It was Vanessa wearing dark clothes and a baseball cap. Here we go, Raymond said. They watched as Vanessa made her way to David's office. She sat at his computer and got to work. The monitoring software showed exactly what she was doing. She was accessing his financial accounts, transferring money to offshore accounts, copying sensitive business documents. FBI teams are moving into position now, one of the agents said quietly into his radio. Stand by. David watched the screen, his heart pounding. Vanessa worked quickly and confidently. She'd clearly done this before. In less than 20 minutes, she'd accessed 7 different accounts and initiated transfers totaling over $40 million. But none of those accounts were real. And the building was now surrounded. When the FBI agents burst into his office, Vanessa tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. They had every exit covered. Within minutes, she was in handcuffs, and her confident smile was finally gone. David watched from the hotel room as they led her out of the building. It was over, thanks to a 12-year-old girl who'd paid attention when no one else did. The interrogation room at the FBI field office was cold and sterile. David sat behind a one-way mirror, watching as two agents questioned Vanessa, or Victoria. He still wasn't sure what to call her. She'd changed completely. Gone was the warm, helpful assistant who brought him coffee and remembered every detail of his schedule. The woman sitting in that chair was cold and calculating. She wasn't crying or begging. She just sat there with her arms crossed, staring at the table. "We have you on camera, Victoria," Agent Mitchell said. She was a woman in her mid-40s who'd been tracking Victoria Hayes for over a year. "We have evidence of you accessing Mr. Chen's financial accounts. We have proof that you're using a stolen identity. And we know about the other victims." Victoria finally looked up. "I want a lawyer. You'll get one. But you should know that we've already recovered all the money you tried to transfer tonight, and we've contacted your previous victims. They're all willing to testify against you." For the first time, Victoria's mask cracked just a little. Her jaw tightened. Agent Mitchell leaned forward. "You're looking at 20 years minimum. Wire fraud, identity theft, computer fraud, theft from multiple victims across state lines. The list goes on. But if you cooperate, if you tell us about anyone else involved in these schemes, we can talk to the prosecutor about reducing your sentence." "There's no one else," Victoria said quietly. "I worked alone. We don't believe that. Someone helped you create those fake credentials. Someone helped you disappear after you escaped from custody." Victoria smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. "Believe what you want. I'm done talking." David turned away from the window. Raymond was standing beside him along with Agent Torres, the other FBI agent assigned to the case. "She's not going to give anyone up," David said. "Maybe not today," Agent Torres replied. "But we have time, and we have enough evidence to put her away for a very long time even without her cooperation." "What about the other victims? The ones from before?" Agent Mitchell came out of the interrogation room, closing the door behind her. "We've contacted all 4 of them. They're all willing to press charges. One of them, a real estate developer in Florida, lost everything because of her. His business collapsed. His family fell apart. He's been waiting for this moment for 2 years. David felt sick thinking about it. That could have been him. If Tasha hadn't warned him, if he hadn't listened, he could have lost his company, his savings, everything he'd built. "How did she get away with it for so long?" David asked. Agent Mitchell sighed. "She's smart. Really smart. She targets successful people who are busy and distracted. She gains their trust quickly by being indispensable. And she's patient. She doesn't rush. She spends weeks or even months setting everything up perfectly before she strikes. But she made a mistake this time," Raymond said. "What mistake?" David asked. "She didn't count on someone paying attention. She didn't think a kid would notice her or recognize her." Agent Mitchell nodded. "That's usually how these criminals get caught. Not by sophisticated security systems or complex investigations. They get caught because one regular person notices something off and speaks up." David thought about Tasha, sitting in that lobby doing homework while her mother worked. How many other people had walked past Victoria in those buildings without giving her a second thought? How many other people had seen something strange but dismissed it as none of their business? "I need to thank her," David said. "Tasha, she saved me." "You should," Agent Mitchell said. "That kid has better instincts than half the detectives I've worked with." The next morning, David went back to his building. He was exhausted, running on no sleep and too much coffee, but he needed to see Tasha and Rosa. He needed them to know what they'd done. He found Rosa in the stairwell between the 15th and 16th floors carrying a bag of trash. She looked startled when she saw him. "Mr. Chen, I'm sorry, I didn't expect to see you here. Is everything okay?" "Everything's okay now," David said. "Thanks to you and your daughter. Is Tasha at school?" Rosa nodded. "Yes, she at Lincoln Middle School. Why, is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to thank you both. The FBI arrested Vanessa last night. Well, her real name is Victoria Hayes. You and Tasha were right about everything." Rosa's hand went to her mouth. "Dios mío, so it's true? She really was that criminal woman?" "Yes, and if Tasha hadn't warned me, I would have lost millions of dollars. Maybe everything." Tears filled Rosa's eyes. "I was so scared. Scared that maybe we were wrong. Scared that you would think we were crazy. Scared that if we made a mistake, I would lose my job and we would have nowhere to go." David felt a weight in his chest. He'd never even thought about what this might have cost them. Rosa was risking everything by speaking up. Her job, her home, her family's security, and she'd done it anyway because it was the right thing to do. "You're not going to lose your job," David said firmly. "And I want to do something for you. For both of you. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Bring Tasha. I'd like to talk to you both. Rosa looked uncertain. I work tomorrow morning. I cannot miss work. I'll clear it with your supervisor. This is important. The next morning, Rosa and Tasha came to David's office. Tasha was wearing her school uniform and looked nervous. She kept fidgeting with her backpack straps. David had asked Raymond to be there too, along with his personal lawyer. He wanted everything to be official. Please sit down, David said, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. They sat. Rosa perched on the edge of her seat like she was ready to run at any moment. Tasha looked around the office with wide eyes, taking in the view of the city from the 42nd floor. First, David began, I want to thank you both properly. Tasha, you showed incredible courage and intelligence. You saw something that no one else saw. And you didn't give up even when people didn't believe you. You saved me from a disaster. Tasha smiled shyly. I was really scared you wouldn't listen. I almost didn't, and that was my mistake, not yours. You did everything right. David turned to Rosa. And Rosa, you supported your daughter even when it was risky. You came to me even though you were afraid. That takes real strength. We just did what was right, Rosa said quietly. I know, and I want to show you how much that means to me. David nodded to his lawyer, who opened a folder and pulled out some documents. Rosa, I'm offering you a new position. I want you to be the facilities manager for my company. You'd oversee all the building maintenance, manage the cleaning staff, and handle any issues that come up. The salary is $80,000 a year, with full benefits and health insurance for you and your children. Rosa stared at him like he'd just spoken in a foreign language. 80,000. Mr. Chen, I don't understand. I am just a custodian. I clean toilets. I empty trash. You're more than that. You've been working 3 jobs to support your family. You're reliable, honest, and hardworking, and I need people I can trust. People with integrity. You've proven you have that. Tears were streaming down Rosa's face now. I don't know what to say. Say yes, David said gently. Yes, Rosa whispered. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. David turned to Tasha. And for you, young lady, I'm setting up an education fund. It will cover your tuition, books, and expenses for any college you want to attend when you graduate from high school. Any college at all. Harvard, MIT, Stanford, wherever you want to go. Tasha's mouth dropped open. Really? Any college? Any college? You're clearly smart enough. You just need the opportunity. But that must cost so much money, Rosa said, still crying. It does, and it's worth every penny. Your daughter saved me from losing $40 million. This is the least I can do. Tasha was crying now too. She looked at her mother, then back at David. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you believe my note at first? Was it because I'm just a kid, or because my mom cleans buildings? David took a deep breath. This was the question he'd been asking himself for days. Honestly, both. I'm ashamed to admit it, but it's true. I thought I was too smart to be fooled. I thought because I was successful and surrounded by professionals, I didn't need to listen to a 12-year-old girl. I was wrong. Dead wrong. And I almost paid a terrible price for that arrogance. But you did listen eventually, Tasha said. Yes, but only because you didn't give up. You kept trying to warn me even when I dismissed you. That persistence, that courage, that's going to take you far in life. Raymond spoke up then. The FBI wants to talk to you too, Tasha. They want to know if you'd be interested in joining their youth outreach program. They teach kids about observation skills and critical thinking. They think you'd be perfect for it. Tasha's eyes lit up. Really, that sounds amazing. As Rosa and Tasha left his office, both of them smiling and talking excitedly, David felt something shift inside him. For years, he'd measured success by numbers in bank accounts and deals closed. But watching that mother and daughter walk away with hope in their eyes, he realized he'd been measuring the wrong things. Success wasn't just about building wealth. It was about recognizing value in unexpected places. It was about listening to people others might overlook. It was about using what you had to lift others up. A 12-year-old girl had taught him that lesson. And he wasn't going to forget it. 6 months had passed since the night Victoria Hayes was arrested. David stood at the back of a large conference hall, watching as hundreds of people filed in. The banner above the stage read, "The Tasha Rodriguez Scholarship Fund Launch Event." Raymond walked up beside him. Nervous? A little, David admitted. This is bigger than I expected. You created a $10 million scholarship fund for underprivileged kids. Did you think people wouldn't notice? David smiled. After everything that happened with Victoria, he'd spent a lot of time thinking about what really mattered. Yes, he'd set up college funds for Tasha and her younger brother. Yes, he'd given Rosa a job that changed her family's life, but he kept thinking about all the other kids out there like Tasha. Smart, observant, full of potential, but without the resources to reach it. So he'd created a scholarship program, not just for college, but starting from middle school. The program would identify bright students from low-income families and provide them with tutoring, mentorship, technology, and eventually full college scholarships. The first year would support 50 students. Within 5 years, he hoped to support 500. Is she here yet? David asked. Rosa just texted. They're parking now. The hall was almost full when Rosa, Tasha, and Tasha's little brother Diego entered. David had invited them to sit in the front row. Tasha was wearing a new dress, and she looked confident in a way she hadn't 6 months ago. Rosa walked with her head held high, no longer the nervous woman who cleaned floors in the shadows. The program director, a former educator David had hired to run the scholarship fund, stepped up to the microphone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the launch of the Tasha Rodriguez Scholarship Fund. I'm Christine Alvarez, and I have the honor of directing this program. Before we begin, I'd like to invite our founder, David Chen, to say a few words. David made his way to the stage. He'd given hundreds of presentations to investors and business leaders over the years, but this felt different. More important somehow. Thank you all for coming, he began. 6 months ago, I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. I almost lost everything I'd built. Not because I wasn't smart enough or didn't work hard enough, but because I'd stopped listening. I'd convinced myself that wisdom only came from certain places. From people with degrees and titles and professional experience. He paused, looking out at the crowd. Then a 12-year-old girl taught me I was wrong. She saw something I missed. She spoke up when she could have stayed quiet. And she saved me because she had something that can't be taught in any business school. She had integrity, courage, and a sharp mind that she'd been developing on her own. Without resources or support, David gestured to Tasha, who was sitting in the front row looking embarrassed but proud. That's Tasha Rodriguez, and this scholarship fund exists because of her. Not just because of what she did for me, but because she made me realize how many brilliant young people are out there, overlooked and underestimated, simply because they don't have the same opportunities as others. The audience applauded, and Tasha waved shyly. This program isn't charity, David continued. It's an investment in the future leaders, innovators, and problem solvers who are sitting in underfunded schools right now, wondering if anyone will ever give them a chance. We're going to give them that chance. After the formal presentations ended, people mingled in the reception area. David was talking to a reporter from the local news when he noticed a commotion near the entrance. He excused himself and walked over to see what was happening. Agent Mitchell was there along with Agent Torres. But they weren't in their usual suits. They were dressed casually and looked like they'd come as guests rather than in any official capacity. Agent Mitchell, David said, surprised. I didn't know you were coming. We wanted to be here, she said. What happened with the Victoria Hayes case, it reminded us why we do this job. It's not just about catching criminals. It's about protecting people and recognizing heroes when we see them. Agent Torres nodded toward Tasha, who was talking excitedly with some of the other scholarship recipients. That kid has a future in law enforcement if she wants it. We've already offered her a spot in our summer youth academy when she turns 14. She told me, David said with a smile. She's very excited about it, though her mother is a little worried. Rose is a good mom, Agent Mitchell said. She raised a daughter who knows the difference between right and wrong and isn't afraid to act on it. That's rare these days. As the evening wound down, David found himself sitting on a bench outside the conference hall with Tasha. Rosa and Diego were inside, talking with some of the other families in the program. How does it feel? David asked. Having a scholarship fund named after you? Tasha shrugged, but she was smiling. Weird, good weird. I still can't believe all this happened because I recognized someone from a school project. It happened because you paid attention and had the courage to speak up. A lot of people would have just minded their own business. My teacher, Mrs. Yamamoto, she always tells us that staying silent when something is wrong is the same as helping the wrong thing happen. She says, even if we're scared, Even if we think no one will listen, we have to try. She sounds like a good teacher. She's the best. She's the one who assigned that project about business crimes. If she hadn't, I never would have known who Victoria Hayes was. David made a mental note to send a substantial donation to Tasha's school. Teachers like Mrs. Yamamoto deserved recognition too. Can I ask you something? Tasha said, her voice more serious now. Sure. Do you think Miss Clark, do you think she ever felt bad about what she was doing? Or did she just see us all as targets? David had wondered the same thing. During the trial, which had concluded just 2 weeks ago, Victoria had shown no remorse. She'd been sentenced to 18 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to all her victims. But she'd never apologized. Never explained why she'd chosen this path? I don't know, David said honestly. I'd like to think that somewhere inside she knew what she was doing was wrong, but I think she'd convinced herself that wealthy people deserved to be stolen from, that somehow we had too much and taking from us was justified. That's sad, Tasha said. Being angry at the world doesn't give you the right to hurt people. No, it doesn't, and you know what the ironic thing is? Victoria was smart enough to be successful on her own. If she'd used all that intelligence and planning ability for something legitimate, she could have built her own company, made her own fortune. Instead, she wasted it on hurting people. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sun set over the city. Mr. Chen, Tasha said. You can call me David. Okay. David, why did you really create this scholarship? And don't just say it's because of what I did. There's more to it, isn't there? David smiled. This kid was sharp. You're right. There is more to it. When I was building my company, I was so focused on success that I forgot where I came from. My parents were immigrants. They worked in restaurants and factories. We didn't have much money. I got where I am because a few people believed in me and gave me opportunities. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that. I started thinking I'd done it all on my own. But you didn't. No one does it all on their own, Tasha. We all need help. We all need someone to see our potential and give us a chance. Victoria's case reminded me of that. It also reminded me that I'd started surrounding myself only with people who looked like success, people in expensive suits with impressive resumes, and I'd stopped seeing everyone else, like me and my mom, like you and your mom, two of the most important people in my life now, and 6 months ago I wouldn't have given you a second thought. That's a problem. And this scholarship is my way of trying to fix that problem, at least a little bit. Rosa came outside then, with Diego holding her hand. Tasha, mija, it's time to go. You have school tomorrow. As they stood to leave, David pulled out an envelope. Before you go, I wanted to give you this. Rosa opened it and gasped. Inside was a check for $50,000. Mr. Chen, no, this is too much. You've already done so much for us, it's not too much. It's a bonus for your first 6 months as facilities manager. You've done an incredible job. The building has never run more smoothly. You've earned this. Rosa started crying, something she seemed to do a lot around David these days. But these were happy tears. Thank you. Thank you for seeing us, for listening, for caring. After they left, David stood alone outside the conference hall, looking up at the building where his office was. He thought about how close he'd come to losing everything, how a small piece of crumpled paper with a child's handwriting had changed the entire trajectory of his life. His phone buzzed. It was an email from Christine Alvarez, the program director. The subject line read, "First batch of scholarship applications, you need to see these." He opened it and saw photos of application essays from kids all over the city. Kids who wanted to be doctors, engineers, teachers, artists. Kids who had dreams but no clear path to reach them, until now. David smiled and headed back inside. There was work to do, lives to change, potential to unlock. And it had all started with a brave girl who'd refused to stay silent. As he walked through the hall, David passed a large photo they'd hung on the wall. It showed Tasha standing in front of Lincoln Middle School, holding her acceptance letter to the scholarship program. Underneath, a quote from her application essay. "My mom always says that our circumstances don't define us. Our choices do. I choose to speak up. I choose to pay attention. I choose to believe that one person can make a difference no matter how young or small they are." David stood there reading those words, feeling something shift in his chest. Tasha was right. One person could make a difference. She'd proven that by saving him. And now, He was going to spend the rest of his life making sure kids like her had every chance to change the world too.